through the window. I'm going to have to stop
Amazing.
it.
There's a cat fight.
I saw police being forceful, pushing young men and women to the ground as they made almost 100 arrests. Will the cold affect your voters?
Well, we have a lot of tremendous support.
Free wherever you get your news.
The people here know that worse storms may well be on their way.
I'm Martha Kellner and I'm Sky's US correspondent based here in Los Angeles.
The most significant day of this conflict.
They keep telling us that they want aid.
And this is what's left of it.
Heavy vehicle.
Why only in America?
People want their country to work.
You want a job in a normal life?
Why are these homes empty?
I want you to be honest with people.
That has happened within minutes.
Sky News, the full story first. Free wherever you get your news.
There's always more to the news than a headline. We want to discover, to delve a little deeper, to find out what's really going on. Explanation, analysis, the people at the heart of every story. I'm Neil Patterson, and this is the Sky News Daily Podcast. So, by the end, we'll hopefully all understand what's going on in the world just that little better. Available wherever you get your podcasts.
We've got your Sunday mornings covered. From the front page and the sounds of the streets to the voices of the people who make the major calls and big picture politics beyond Westminster. We'll put you at the heart of our story. A new start to Sunday.
I'm ready. Are you?
Join me, Trevor Phillips, Sunday mornings on Sky News.
Welcome back. You are watching the press preview. A first look at what's on the front pages as they arrive. In the next half hour, we'll see what's making the headlines with the broadcaster and financial analyst Albiea Mankona and the journalist and author Christina Patterson. So let's see what's on some of those front pages for you now. On the eve of the Labour Party conference, The Observer speaks to Sir Keir Starmer, who pledges to shield public services from cutbacks. The Sunday Mirror has also been talking to the Prime Minister and carries the headline, "No more austerity." The Sunday Express claims that people close to Sir Keir Starmer are urging him to sack his Chief of Staff, Sue Gray, over what the paper calls her high-handed manner and grip on power. The Mail on Sunday pictures Sir Keir and Miss Gray in a hospitality box at last Sunday's Tottenham Hotspur match, alongside the Foreign Secretary David Lammy and the lobbyist Katie Perior, who used to work for Theresa May in Downing Street. The Conservative leadership candidate Robert Jenrick has written an opinion piece for the Sunday Telegraph in which he asserts that terror suspects have been allowed to, quote, waltz in to the UK via small boats in the Channel. The Sunday People hears that the charity Cancer Research intends to review its decision to take funds from the estate of the late Harrods owner Mohammed Al Fayed, who's been accused of systemic sexual misconduct in recent days. The Times adds that 150 alleged victims and witnesses to Al Fayed's behaviour have come forward in the last 2 days. The Sun reports that TV personality Zara McDermott returned to the Strictly Come Dancing studio tonight, having made allegations of bullying when she took part in the show last year. And The Star offers the results of a survey which found that 1 in 5 people would save their pet before their mother-in-law in the event of an alien invasion. A reminder that by scanning the QR code you'll see on screen during the programme, you can check out the front pages of tomorrow's newspapers while you watch us. And we are joined tonight by Albiea Mankona and Christina Patterson. Welcome to you both. Let's start with the Telegraph. Starmer has 4 weeks to prove he can govern. Who is saying that, Christina?
Oh, a source close to the party, along with all the other sources who have not been able to shut their mouths in the past week or so. I mean, of course, it isn't actually true that Keir Starmer has 4 weeks to prove he can govern, because his party has just been elected to government for the next 4 to 5 years, and there's no actual reason that he should have to leave before then. So these ups and downs are not necessarily, in the long run, that important. However, it has been a terrible week for Keir Starmer, really terrible. And I have to say that if, given all the allegations about expenses and, getting funds for dress from Lord Ali, dresses and hospitality and all the rest of it, and if Sue Gray, there's so much criticism being directed at Sue Gray, if she is actually in charge of the whole thing, then she is making a mighty mess of things, or somebody is making a mighty mess of things, because Keir Starmer, poor man, who was trying his best, seems to have been incredibly badly advised. So, yes, it has been disastrous, and exactly what Labour didn't need hanging over them as they start their conference at what should have been, after 14 years of horrific Tory government, a triumphant time for them.
And Albiea, it shows that there are major divisions within the party with briefings and anti-briefings, particularly with Sue Gray's name in the frame.
Major divisions within the party, specifically in number 10, all of these briefings coming out. It's not a very good look for Keir Starmer, and certainly not what he wants at the first Labour conference after being out of power for 14 years. I mean, some of these headlines are absolutely terrible. We have also seen some polling from Opinion, which suggests that Keir Starmer's net approval ratings are actually lower than the former Prime Minister's, Rishi Sunak's, by 1 point. I think his are at -26 and Rishi Sunak's are at -25. So this is really not a very good start for Keir Starmer at all, and it's not going to be the set of headlines or stories that he wants going into his first conference as the Prime Minister.
Yes, and they are going to try and change the agenda and draw a line under the affair of gifts of clothing and football tickets to start the conference by saying, we are not going to go for austerity. That time is over.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I feel so sorry for them. I think they've made a total dog's dinner of it, but I do feel really sorry for them because they obviously wanted to undo some of the mess that the Tory party have left behind. And let's be clear, they have left behind a mess. But unfortunately, this does look like amateur hour. And I think, after all 3 months of, to coin the cliche, doom and gloom, yes, absolutely now is the time for something more positive. And I think for the British public to hear that this isn't going to be austerity Mark II would be a very important message, because certainly all the messages that have been coming out of Downing Street are that it pretty much will be misery for the next 5 years. So I hope that they do strike a more hopeful note. But just watching Keir Starmer do all those interviews to local radio a couple of days ago, I mean, he was putting on a brave face, but he looked absolutely miserable, and it really is a terrible start.
And Albiea, the story of the gifts, it doesn't go away. We look at the front page of the Mail with Sir Keir Starmer pictured in the Tottenham Hotspur hospitality box with Sue Gray and the Foreign Secretary also, and a particular lobbyist.
It doesn't look good. Look, I think it's important in this case to actually say that it doesn't appear that Keir Starmer's actually broken any rules in what he's doing when it comes to attending this Tottenham football match. But the point is, it doesn't look very good. And Keir Starmer made a real point, and indeed the rest of the Labour shadow cabinet when they were in opposition, a real point of making a huge fuss over Tory sleaze, even when the rules weren't necessarily broken, just things looked bad. They had to go at the Tories for the optics. And the optics of this situation are very bad. And I wonder if there are any regrets from Labour at going so hard at the Tories for alleged sleaze, alleged corruption, when actually they've come into government and they're making a lot of the same mistakes that the Conservatives did. But it's interesting that this seems to be happening in the first couple of months of government. Things didn't start falling apart for Boris Johnson and the Tories until a couple of years in.
Christina, is this sleaze that they haven't broken any rules, have they?
I mean, personally, I think there's a huge overreaction here. I particularly think that about the Sue Gray salary, because this has been reported by BBC journalists who are paid way, way, way more than Sue Gray. And there are lots of senior civil servants who are paid way more than Sue Gray. I mean, I couldn't dream of earning anything like any of these people earn. However, I don't think anyone would think that £177,000 is an enormous salary for a British Prime Minister to earn. And for Sue Gray to be, as his chief advisor, to be earning £3,000 more doesn't seem to me ridiculous, and she played no part in that. In terms of the clothes, I also think that It's not great. I think it would have been wiser if they hadn't accepted that gift. But this is like a uniform, wearing good. These people are not. Many of them are not particularly interested in clothes. They don't get budgets for it or allowances for it. You do actually have a lot of expenses when you are a politician, because there are lots of things you can't actually claim for, particularly after the previous expense scandals that were reported by the Telegraph, at great length, on front page after front page after front page. There have been major crackdowns. So I think, and of course you get torn apart by the newspaper and the media if you're not looking smart, and you are, if you're Prime Minister, literally representing Britain on the world stage.
Do you think that there should be a budget?
I think there should, actually. I think we look after our Prime Minister and our senior politicians, our government, pretty badly. I mean, Downing Street is a pretty shoddy operation. It's very scruffy. The offices are inadequate. It's definitely not a kind of grand residence for a Prime Minister. I think we should have more supplied officially, and then there would be less need for these scandals.
I agree, Albie?
I take the points that have just been made, but I just wonder whether or not the same arguments would have been applied if Dominic Cummings was earning more than Boris Johnson when he was the Chief of Staff and Boris Johnson was in power. If the same arguments would be applied to politicians like Liz Truss or Boris Johnson's wife, Carrie Johnson, receiving donations in clothes from wealthy Tory donors. I don't think the reaction from the left would be excusing it somehow and saying, well, actually, we need to have a budget paid for by taxpayers to pay for the clothes of politicians. I don't think that is an argument the left would have made if the Tories were in power.
I certainly would make that. I certainly would. I mean, you have to be fair about these things. I certainly would make that argument. But I think if we, I don't think it's fair to you. I mean, you didn't use the word sleaze, but if we compare this, for example, to the PPE scandals and Michelle Mone and the scale of that, and we're looking here at a few frocks for, like 500 quid a throw or whatever, I think most countries in the world would look at this and think, what is the fuss about?
Let's talk a little bit more about Sue Gray, because the Express is claiming that there are people within Number 10 who are trying and moving towards pushing her out, Albie.
Yes, this is coming from another source close to Number 10. Apparently, there's a target on Sue Gray's back saying that this divisive Chief of Staff, Sue Gray, whose feud with the Cabinet Secretary is at the heart of all the turmoil, really buying into this story, which has been rumbling on now all week, that Sue Gray is at the heart of some sort of disorder at Number 10. There was this whole idea of Sue Gray coming into government and being part of the Labour government as being someone who's going to prepare the Labour Party for working with the civil service effectively. Someone that's worked in government before, of course. She had a senior role in the civil service under the previous government for a very long time. She was meant to be an enforcer, someone who could get things done, someone who knew how Whitehall worked. It doesn't appear, after the first couple of months of Labour government, that has really been the case.
Is it just a case of personality clashes? There are suggestions that, she's got a grip on power that perhaps she shouldn't have?
It's very hard to say. I suspect that she does know how the civil service works, and the civil service is extremely important in implementing, what government wants to be done. So I don't have any reason to doubt her ability to manage that side of things. What is clear is that they're getting terrible communications advice, and that there are a lot of people whose noses have been put out of joint by her. And my understanding is that there are special advisors who are being paid less in government than they were when they were in opposition, which I understand is irritating. But I also think some of these people need to grow up. If you're in government, you need to zip it, put a lid on it. And I think it's just been a total mess. So I think the whole thing is very sad. And something will have to change. I think either the people who have leaked will have to be sacked, basically, or ultimately Sue Gray will have to go. But that might be a shame, because they do need someone who knows how to get things done.
Christina and Albie, thank you very much for your first contributions. We're going to take a break now. Coming up, we'll examine the fallout from allegations of systemic sexual misconduct by the late Harrods owner, Mohammed Al-Fayed. We'll be right back. Do stay with us.
I'm Martha Kellner and I'm Sky's US correspondent based here in Los Angeles. We aim to be the best and the most trusted place for news.
I'm Martin Brunt. and I'm Sky's crime correspondent. We take you to the heart of the stories that shape our world.
I'm Helen Ann Smith. I'm Sky's Asia correspondent, and I'm based here in Beijing.
We help you understand the world with us. I'm Neville Lazarus, and I'm Sky's reporter based in Delhi.
Our app gives you the very best of Sky News wherever you are. Breaking news, videos and analysis.
Evidence of the crisis.
Podcasts, watching us live.
Live here from Washington.
Wherever you get your podcast.
All in one place. And all at just the touch of a screen. The Sky News app. Get the full story first.
I'm Martin Brunt, and I'm Sky's crime correspondent. My most memorable story was, and still is, the disappearance of Madeleine McCann.
Please, please do not hurt her. Please give our little girl back.
We aim to be the best and most trusted place for news.
For detectives, the first 48 hours after a murder are crucial in the search for clues. The public expects them to find Jill Dando's killer soon. The British detectives are planning to meet forensic experts, academics, and even witch doctors.
I remember the grimmest case, the Soham murders of schoolgirls Holly and Jessica. I felt I can't undo what's happened, but I can help explain it.
Ian Huntley was arrested and charged within a fortnight of the murders.
I've never murdered anyone. I've never raped anyone. What am I in jail for?
The parole board has to decide if Bronson needs to be kept locked up for the safety of the public. My biggest challenge was to persuade a jailed diamond thief to answer my letters. Martin Brunt, Sky News at the Old Bailey.
I say, bring it on.
With America divided and tensions running high, get ready for an election like no other.
Join our teams as we follow the campaign trail as America decides.
We will win, win, win. Get closer to the action this US election with full reaction and analysis.
Sky News, the full story first.
Significant day of this conflict.
They keep telling us that they want aid.
And this is what's left of it.
Dense heavy vehicle.
Why only in America?
People want their country to work.
Just want a job in a normal life.
Why are these homes empty?
I want you to be honest with people.
That has happened within minutes.
Sky News, the full story first. Free wherever you get your news.
Welcome back. You are watching the press preview. Still with me, Albiea Mankona and Christina Patterson taking us through the papers. In this section, let's start with the Sunday Telegraph. This story regarding Robert Jenrick, the former immigration minister. He's saying, and quoted as saying, that terror suspects waltz in on small boats. Christina.
Yes, he's really going for this immigrants are at the root of all our problems approach to the leadership race. And yeah, I mean, you know, he's lost his weight, he's taken his Ozempic, he's had his haircut, and now he's doing a full Donald Trump. You know, he'll be talking about the...
But, I mean, this will be factually correct, won't it? I mean, Mr Jenrick says that at least 1,000 people who arrived on small boats in the year before he became immigration minister were connected to criminality of all kinds.
Yes, it may well be, and he hasn't yet talked about them eating cats and dogs, so that's good. But it was his government, that was his party that was in power for 14 years as they allowed these people to wander the streets without doing anything about it. You know, had they had a proper system in place where they actually processed people promptly and actually decided whether they were eligible to stay or not, and if they had criminal records, as he's alleged, they could have been dealt with very quickly and deported. His government failed to do that. So it's very nice of him to talk on the front page of the Telegraph about the failures of his government and his party when it was in office, but it doesn't really help us at this particular point. And of course, you get the impression, which is is generally the case, that he is using this just to build his leadership case. And I think it's dreadful if terrorists are coming in to the country on boats or in any other means. But, you know, what you need to do is have a grip on the system, which they didn't have.
Albiea, Mr Jenrick says that his time in the Home Office exposed him to the dark truth that illegal migration is putting Britain's security at risk. Is that an alarmist statement to make?
Look, I think we have to take what Robert has said at face value. If what Robert is saying is true, this is a very serious issue. This is someone who was the immigration minister. He was a member of the previous government. He's privy to information that we are not privy to. So if he is saying there are dangerous people coming into the UK on small boats, some linked to terror organisations that have actually killed people, that should be taken very seriously indeed. And I think that's something which not just Robert Jenrick and the Conservative leadership contenders will have to grip and grapple. It's also something which the Labour Party will have to grip and grapple because, of course, in a lot of the seats that Labour won in the most recent general election, Reform were right behind them. So I think this is an issue that both the left and the right have to grip if they're going to keep people like Nigel Farage out of power, and it shouldn't be dismissed.
And as you alluded to, Christina, he's suggesting that he saw the British state powerless as these criminals broke into the country. But he was in power.
I mean, as I said, it's very nice of him to be highlighting the many failures of his government. And yes, this was one of the biggest ones. Their failure to grip the immigration, the illegal immigration, has been dreadful. Has been incredibly expensive, apart from anything else.
Albiea, let's turn to the Mohammed Al Fayed allegations that have come to the fore in the last few days. The Times saying that he avoided charges twice over sexual abuse.
Yes, we've seen 150 victims and witnesses come forward in this really quite shocking story of Mohammed Al Fayed. Of course, he was part of the management team of Harrods for quite a long time. Harrods have come out and said the company is run very differently today than how it was run when Mohammed Al Fayed was in charge. But it really does call into question, I suppose, how we handle these sorts of rape and sexual harassment claims in the United Kingdom. We know that there are a lot of cases that go unsolved. We know that there are a lot of cases which are not even properly reported. And when you see stories like this in the media of such big, powerful figures with such large numbers of victims still not being prosecuted, it really does call into the question as to whether or not our criminal justice system is delivering the correct outcomes for victims and also criminals.
And just because of time, we'll move to the People, Christina, and their suggestion there that cancer research is reviewing their links with Mohammed Al Fayed and with Harrods because of this scandal.
Yeah, well, they'd have to. Anyone who's has any links with him, charities or anything else, would have to sever all links now, and we have to assume that they didn't know about any of these allegations at the time. I have to say the thing that has shocked me most was hearing, I think it was possibly on the Today programme, someone say that the police had decided not to prosecute. I think a victim said that the police had decided not to prosecute because he was unwell, as if somehow feeling a bit ill exempts you from criminal responsibility.
Leave it there. Thank you very much. See you in the next.
There's always more to the news than a headline. We want to discover, to delve a little deeper, to find out what's really going on. Explanation, analysis, the people at the heart of every story. I'm Neil Patterson, and this is the Sky News Daily Podcast. So, by the end, we'll hopefully all understand what's going on in the world just that little better. Available wherever you get your podcasts.
We've got your Sunday mornings covered.